One thing that I've always wanted to do was to look at the past trailers to a game that we were heavily anticipating and see how those scenes in the trailer changed to the actual game, and how big those scenes were when we actually got our hands on the game. And obviously one of the games that I wanted to do this with was The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I remember we were getting so many little snippets and clippets of this game. I remember how confused we all were, trying to figure out what the story was, what the plot was, how this game was going to be different from Breath of the Wild, and we were all trying to bring things together and figure them out. So today I want to go back and look at all the past trailers and talk about how the actual gameplay changed. And for the scenes that didn't change that much, I kind of want to talk about how significant these scenes even were to be in this trailer in the first place. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, stop what you're doing, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Nintendo in general, but let's dive into the trailers. First, we have the reveal trailer from 2019, which shows us the underground. Underneath Hyrule Castle, the imprisoning chamber, where Ganondorf is imprisoned, and we see Zelda and Link traveling a path, looking at wall murals, and making their way to this imprisoned Ganondorf. Now, this whole entire cutscene and scene entirely was completely made up for this trailer. None of this happened. The rat never got consumed by gloom, and there was never a Don-Don that Zelda and Link were walking with and riding. In fact, the only time the Don-Dons were shown at all was within a little tiny mini quest, which you can feed them luminous stones for them to release other types of materials for you to collect, but they were an extremely small, insignificant part of this entire story, and it never was in the beginning of the game. In fact, there was never a cutscene at all. It was actually a playable part of the game where you controlled Link and followed Zelda around and did some small things looking at murals and then eventually leading into that imprisoning chamber. In fact, the imprisoning chamber itself looked slightly different. In the trailer, it looked like everything was on the floor, like it was all one solid area and some step-like stones going up to the top, where in the actual game, it looks like the pillar that Ganondorf is imprisoned on is floating or literally on one entire pillar where everything else is a giant chasm below him. The trailer also shows Link getting Raru's arm in this scene, which doesn't happen. He gets grabbed by the arm and then taken to a resurrection shrine, but after that, it then appears on his arm, not during the battle with Ganondorf underground. Now, the trailer also seems to hint at this all happens in this cave right here, because this is the first and only time we've ever seen this cave, even in the game. There is no such cave, and I think maybe it's because of after the upheaval events, maybe the cave got blocked, and now the only way down there is through the giant chasm underneath Hyrule Castle, so that definitely could be the case. But yeah, we never get to see this cave. We also never get to see a big underground area like this with a giant bridge crossing a river. In fact, the whole area was very tiny and just filled with multiple different hallways. We never really had a big open area underground like this, which would have been really cool. Yes, technically we have the depths, but this just looked like a really cool scene. I wish they would have added like a little cool bridge that led into the imprisoning chamber like this. And obviously the same thing happens where Ganondorf turns his head and looks at Zelda and makes that creepy eyes glow, and it's followed by a dialogue, but obviously it's cut off here. And then they show us the world of Hyrule, where a lot of people started to wonder why it looked exactly the same as Breath of the Wild, and we saw the castle start to rise from the ground. Now, I remember at the time, some people pointed out that it looked like almost giant tentacles or legs were coming out from beneath the castle to lift it up, and maybe that was the goal. Maybe like guardian legs that were corrupted by Ganondorf or something, or Malice arms or something were pushing it out of the ground. I don't know. I can kind of see it, but then again, maybe it's just the debris falling down. But yeah, there's that. A whopping 2 years later, we finally get a more gameplay-focused segment on E3 of 2021, which once again starts off showing us the beginning of the game where Ganondorf is rising with all of his gloom spreading and Zelda falling, and of course Link getting that arm. They repeat this part multiple times in different trailers, but then we finally see Link skydiving with his brand new falling animation with his arms and legs out as he's falling down into the Sky Islands, probably right after he jumps for the first time. Once again, this being at the very beginning of the game, but it was a definitely huge moment, I think. Just seeing Link fall from the sky like that and then the title card appear, it was pretty awesome. Now here they really did focus on the Sky Islands a lot, showing Link running across these sun-crested golden islands, which looked like it was going to be a big part of the game, and let's face it, The Sky Islands were not that big. In fact, a lot of them were just copy and paste and placed all over the sky in order for us to collect some small things and then head back down to the ground and then into the depths. So yeah, that was a little bit of an over-exaggeration with the trailers. They just loved showing the sky, which really didn't have a lot to do there. A lot of people, myself included, thought this creature was a very huge, either NPC or boss battle. And in fact, they're just Zonaite Steward constructs, which pretty much just give you some dialogue at the very beginning of the game, kind of help you through certain areas, and they're normal sized. It just kind of, the camera pan made it look like it was a big significant character. Not really. And then you just have some basic scenes of Link fighting. You have the brand new Battle Talus enemies. You also have the recall ability to send items back up. But something that was very interesting was this scene right here with the like. We all knew it was a like and that Link was in some type of cave, but the shield was the interesting part. We see a giant dragon Zonaite head, and it's breathing fire as Link holds the shield out. And a lot of people thought it was just some type of new weapon, and that's it. Not knowing that it was going to be something huge with the fuse mechanic. The fact that Link actually fused that fire emitter to the shield. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but in this trailer, that fire emitter looks a lot bigger than they do in the game. Maybe it's just me, but yeah. Man, did they psych us out with this scene. A lot of us thought that the water drop had something to do with Link going up through the platform using Ascend, which had no correlation whatsoever because it just looked like it. The way they did this was very smart because the teardrop actually does go backwards when you go to watch a memory. And what's so interesting about this is that they use that to kind of show right into the Ascend ability of Link going through a platform. So a lot of people thought maybe this is how you get to the sky. Maybe this is some type of way to shoot from the ground to the sky using this teardrop. No, this is actually a memory fragment that gives us a flashback as to what Zelda is doing in the past as she went back in time, which was such a huge part of the story. So yeah, that was a huge thing that completely went over all of our heads. We were also up here trying to figure out what was going on with this little shrine beside Link and if it was going to be a shrine or not. They're nothing, nothing at all. I mean, you can go up there and just maybe sometimes there's chests on some of these or something to pick up, but they're really used for nothing in the game. And then, what do you know? Another scene of Hyrule Castle rising from the ground. Once again, nothing big here. The same scene played out a little bit. It was like a scene of about 5 to 7 seconds, and then it was over. The castle was slightly floating, and that's about it. I think the gloom shooting out from underneath the castle was a lot more intense than it needed to be because all it did was shoot it up in the air and it floated there. It was never a corrupted castle. It never turned into Ganon's castle or anything like that. So yeah. And in 2022, we got a delay announcement by Aonuma, but we still got a little snippet of some new gameplay. It showed Link with the decayed and broken Master Sword as it was glowing as Fi was trying to talk to him, and he's putting it inside of this glowing gold light, or at least holding it up to it. We thought this was going to be a way for Link to repair the Master Sword, slowly putting it into these golden orbs of light in order to repair it. Nope, not even close. Now, some people did notice a recall symbol on the back of Link's hand at this time, which ultimately is what's about to happen here. It's about to get recalled all the way back to the past where Zelda is right now for her to repair the Master Sword in the past, which was such a huge critical plot point. And then we move on to 2022 to the first official trailer for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which shows us this wall mural of this weird creature, as we now know is a Zonaite. Now, we don't know for sure if that was Rauru or someone else, maybe the first Zonaite to actually come down and meet the people, but this was actually, yeah, a Zonaite the entire time. The rumors and theories from Breath of the Wild were true. The Zonaite are going to hold a major role in this game, and yes, those tears that we see on that wall mural was very important to the game as well, and did in a way reference dungeons being in this game, because after you completed one, you got the Secret Stone, which is still a weird name to me. But all the other murals were shown, and Link opening up the doors to jump off the platform shows still the beginning of the game. In the background on the Sky Islands, we saw a giant temple, and we were trying to decide if it was a dungeon or something, but it's actually the new version of the Temple of Time, which was very interesting. We see Link using recall on a stone in order to shoot up to the Sky Islands, which is exactly how it works in game. It was nothing super special, and you can see the giant thunderhead cloud over there over the Faron region, but Link is also just climbing up the side of a floating island in the sky. That's all that scene is. And that's really the end of the trailer, and that's why I've said multiple times, maybe Nintendo should have waited a little bit longer so they could show more stuff here, because we already thought what we saw was very small. But it's even smaller than that. It was a very, very small part of the game. At the very end of the trailer, we finally see the second relic after the fire emitter, which is the Zonai Glider, which we thought was just a device that Link could pull out and fly around Hyrule, not knowing that it's going to be used for so much more, for tons of fusing and putting things on it. Right now, he's just using the base glider and just gliding across the sky, which was such well hidden because there was so much more to that. We then move on to Nintendo's second official trailer, which is just so weird because this is technically like number 4, but we see a nighttime sky with tons of the enemies and towers all over the map, and there really wasn't a lot here. We saw that giant thundercloud over the Rito area, which a lot of us didn't know exactly what it was, not knowing that it was going to actually be the Stormwind Arc, one of the dungeons in this game. We got our first look at the depths here, which we thought was just a giant underground cave part, and those little floating dots all over the map were actually Poes. A lot of us predicted that, myself included. But yeah, this was the first look at the depths, a map underneath the overworld map, which was the same size, and they barely showed this thing off. We could even see a giant light route in the background, which we were also trying to figure out what that was. Then we get to see a couple scenes that weren't as important. We got to see a giant Gleeok on the bridge, which was really cool, which is exactly the same as in-game, and some other scenes of just like Link looking at the Blood Moon and some cutscenes that were actually in-game. One of the things that we also saw was a giant explosion that happened and showed some type of beast in the middle. Now this was right after we saw like Malice stones or something falling from the sky from Ganondorf, which was something that happened in the past cutscene, by the way, but we thought this was actually going to be some type of like boss forming from Ganondorf in front of us, and we saw the tentacles and stuff in the arms, and it almost looked like Guardian arms or something, but this was in fact the death animation for one of the bosses, and this is Queen Gyptos, because we can actually compare the scenes, and yeah, we just were looking at Queen Gyptos getting destroyed, so Nintendo psyched us out again. We also saw tons of enemies spawning, which was once again a cutscene of the past, and we got to see what we thought was going to be a Redead, but it's a Gyptos for some reason. Here we see tons of Molduga rushing, which is going to be Hyrule Castle on the Great Plateau in the past, once again just a cutscene, and we can also see Link activating one of the towers and seeing the Guardian arms come out in order to hook him up before he flies upward. Now this scene made it look like up in the sky there was some type of, you know, blood moon that was constant or something going on with the world, which is never the case, so maybe the scene was just strictly taken as the blood moon was coming to make it look cooler, so that's all that was. Here we have Link running away from a Hinox in a cave, and around his neck, that stone is actually a Zonai Shrine Stone that Link will have to take to one of the shrines in order to activate it. What are all these crazy symbols all over the world? Well, we finally got our answer. It was just for the flashbacks, where the tears kind of gave us story elements, very similar to the flashbacks from Breath of the Wild, really story plot devices. Then we got to see tons of moblins chasing after Link with different horns, and we do know now that these horns could be used to fuse to the end of your weapons, whether it be your shield or your sword, which was very vital into fighting enemies this time around. And we saw a scene of Link fighting a Flux Construct, which was a really fun boss in the overworld. We then see Link fusing a Keese Eye to one of his arrows in order to shoot it at an Arrokuda, which was very interesting because we didn't know fusing was a thing, and we didn't even know that was an eyeball at first, which was really weird. We thought it was some type of like bomb or something that he put together. Nope, it's a homing eyeball. We also saw Link going down this rail on the side of Death Mountain, and you can see, yep, there's that big old red rock, which was infecting all of the Gorons all over the place, and the only way to break this thing down was to use Yunobo. We then see Link with a cannon fused to a long sword in order to shoot this cannonball out, which was once again fused, which we just didn't know at the time. We saw the Zonai Dragon, you know, fire emitter, and then now this giant cannon. We didn't know what we were looking at. We see Link reaching out to Zelda in order to get the recall ability, but that was really about it. It wasn't actually Zelda there. It was kind of like a, you know, blast from the past timeline apparition of her, you know, not really her being there, but yeah, it was actually Zelda. Then at the very end of the trailer, they finally give us a hint as to what this game is going to be about. They use Ultra Hand in order to pull a tire out of the mud, and we see Link has built him a car, a hot air balloon, some type of flying device with handlebars and fans. Yep, this is where we started to see this is going to be a game about crafting. Link isn't just finding these things, he's building them. Oh yeah, in this shot of the field, you can actually see a gloom coming out of the ground to the left there, and that's one of the first spots in the game where you jump down there into the depths, hear that sound, and find out there's a whole nother map down there. Also, this is where we can finally see some shrines, which we pretty much all predicted they were probably going to be shrines. And finally, just over a month and a half until the game was to release, we got a big blowout for the final trailer in 2023. Which shows us some interesting things. Now, obviously, this was right before the game came out. I'm not going to dissect every single scene, but I'm going to quickly talk about, some of the scenes that just showed some massive points of the game and what it means to us now after those of us that have completed the game already. But we get to see some of the towns. Hateno Village, obviously ran by mushrooms now, thanks to CC. We get to see Kakariko Village with the giant ring ruins, with the Zonai ruins that fell from the sky there for obviously a very important reason. We've seen giant holes in the sand in the desert, which didn't lead into anything that big besides some underground caves. And we knew that was going to be a temple coming out of the desert as well. It was the Lightning Temple in the Gerudo region. Scene of powered up Ganondorf from the Secret Stone, which we didn't get to see too much of besides one cutscene in the very end. Then we see just a big compilation of dungeons that we didn't even know. This is the Fire Temple, underneath the ground in the depths. This is the Stormwind Arc, which was eventually leading to the Wind Temple. And then eventually we see Link on the path leading towards the Water Temple with the zero gravity jumps, which was only for this section and a couple other sections in the sky too, which was a letdown because I thought that was such a cool thing. I wanted to see more of that anti-gravity jump, and I thought Link was finally going to get like an upgraded jump or something. I can't even lie, I don't even really remember this section of Link falling through lasers all Mission Impossible style, which meant I think it was just like one part of a floating island in the sky, and that was it. It wasn't even for like a dungeon or anything like that, which was incredibly small. Here's Link fighting alongside the monster crew, which was also very, very minor. I mean, literally, I played almost 100+ hours in the game and didn't even find these guys until the very end of my playthrough. So yeah, it was just like a small side quest thing where you can help them out, which really meant you do all the work. Finally see Rauru, which was the first king of Hyrule, a very important character, which I also predicted in the background were going to be the past sages or past champions, and they were, which was pretty cool. We didn't get to see their faces or really have much interesting dialogue with them, but it is what it is. And we saw that giant construct come out of the wall, and I thought for sure it was a boss fight. Well, technically there is another one like this that you fight, but this was actually Minoru coming out of the wall pretty much because she goes into the body of this Zonite construct, which is a partner that you'll have, which is pretty cool. And you see some basic cutscenes. Link in modern Hyrule Castle, which we know is the battle against Phantom Ganon, which obviously wasn't a modern version of Hyrule Castle. We see Zelda kind of chatting with Rauru and figuring out what to do, a past scene of Link finding the Master Sword again in order to go journey underneath the castle, and it just kind of plays out, lots of those cutscenes and stuff that we've already seen over and over again. We can see Link fighting a Goron, which we find out is Yunobo that's brainwashed, and you can see Link and Tulin fly up into the sky in order to reach the Stormwind Arc, which obviously, yeah, he is a partner buddy that helps you out like we all expected. This scene was so important because I feel like this was like 90% of our playthroughs, using this rocket on your shield in order to get up to high places. This was such an important asset to the game because there was so many places I didn't feel like climbing and I could just blast at the top. So spending tons of materials in order to get as many rockets as I could was mandatory. But the rest, once again, more dungeons they showed us, with the water dungeon leading up to it and the fire dungeon on the inside. I mean, like, literally, they were showing us dungeons this whole time. Remember when we thought this contraption was crazy that they were able to build? Yeah, it literally is nothing compared to the stuff that we've seen for weeks and weeks after the game dropped, and people created some wild things. Even this thing in the tree was a contraption built by Nintendo. This wasn't something that Link just found. We then finally see a boss battle against Colgera, which was really cool, which was the boss of the Wind Temple, and also another animation of a boss exploding, which Nintendo was clearly just obsessed with showing us that for some reason. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. This scene is so incredibly massive. We just saw Zelda staring down at one of the secret stones, but not even realizing how incredibly important this scene was. Probably the most important scene within the entire game. Once again, spoiler. This is when Zelda eats the freaking sacred stone and turns into the Light Dragon. Yeah, that dragon that we've been seeing in some of the trailers and also in the beginning of our game, that's Zelda. And this was the only way that she could revitalize the Master Sword in order to get it back to Link in the present time, which is just insane. Like, the whole thing about this scene was so crazy. The fact that Zelda was flying over Hyrule for all that time, and It was emotional, it was serious, it was the biggest plot change of the whole story, and they put it in the trailer. They're sneaky. Here we have Link fighting the Mukto Rock in the Water Temple, another boss battle, and Link and Tulin once again flying down, getting ready to fight the boss battle of the Wind Temple, Colgera. Once again, Nintendo was not afraid to show a lot of these bosses and temples, we just didn't really know what they were at the time. So here we have Sonya finally shown, and people are trying to figure out who she was, shining this giant beam of light down, but it was also with the help of Rauru and Zelda in the past in order to do this, which was very interesting. Here we have some scenes once again of Link fighting with his friends, the brand new champions, which are now the new sages, like Sidon in the Water Temple once again, and also Link and all of his friends at the very end of the game. I mean, you could just see this and definitely tell that this was the very end of the game. And you can see they all had secret stones on them, so we just knew that this had to be like a final attack thing, and it was. But something very interesting here is they would not show Yunobo for some reason. Like, they act like there was something different with him, and there wasn't, like, at all. He just had like a kind of outfit change, if anything. Like, he doesn't have his mind control mask on at this point or anything, so like, why they were so afraid to show him was very bizarre and weird to me. And once again, we know why Zelda was calling out to Link, saying, "I hope you can find me." Once again, because she's not in his Hyrule, she's in the past. And that was all the trailers for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It was really a journey getting ready for this game and trying to predict and guess everything that we were seeing, and seeing how incredibly wrong and sometimes how incredibly right we were. It was a long journey that a lot of us will probably never forget, and of course we're probably already gearing up for another one for the future installments. But let me know in the comments down below if there was anything that was really shocking to you that's different from the trailers to obviously the game now. Was there anything that you can't believe that they put in the trailer? Anything that you also noticed that changed? Let me know in the comments. But thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you leave a like and subscribe before you head out. And I will see you all on the next one. See you guys.